Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about such an important topic. Um, the previous slides that have been presented to you has demonstrated all the amazing accomplishments that this district has been able to achieve. The next several slides will speak to the continued commitment for funding so that we can continue our commitment to excellence. It all starts with the budget goal, which is always to support student achievement through the development of a budget that provides for thorough and efficient education in accordance with New Jersey core curriculum content standards. How we will be funding this proposed budget represents a zero tax levy increase. So the budget that we will be proposing and talking about will have a flat tax levy, which will remain at $47,180,000. As we've spoken about at our previous meetings, we did receive some state aid that has been restored, and what we've utilized that money is to go right back to tax relief. Some of the key areas of how we're able to accomplish this flat tax levy increase, what you'll see is, my apologies because the last slide is unreadable, so I'll speak to it. And we will have copies of this after the meeting concludes, and it will certainly be posted on our website. But primarily, our general fund budget spending is actually reducing. It's decreasing by $150,000. How we were able to achieve this flat tax levy increase is several factors. The first being, as I mentioned earlier, the restored state aid is going back to tax relief. Also through, tough fiscal management, favorable personnel contracts, just ongoing continued energy efficiencies, has been mentioned previously, and the transportation outsourcing. And the last slide, again, it just dictates, the final slide that's blacked out is just speaking to the fact that our budget is 93% of our budget is funded with local dollars, local tax levy. The $500,000 that's been restored is not even close to what we lost in the current year. In the current year budget, we lost $2.5 million in state aid. And on top of that, in our 09-10 school year, we had $165,000 taken from our state aid. So it's encouraging to see that there was some aid that's been relieved, but as you can see, there's still much more that needs to be restored. And there'll be a further slide in. We'll go into the whole breakdown of how the budget's being funded. Okay, where does the money go? The point of this slide is to demonstrate how the $50,711,000 budget is distributed. And again, primarily it's salaries and benefits, which constitute 81%. As you can see, the percentage increase for salaries is 0.1%. It's a very minimal increase. Again, that's been achieved by the results of a very favorable negotiation process, and also the impact of the outsourcing of the transportation. The benefits is actually reducing by 0.5%. Again, how that is being able to be achieved is the results of the transportation being outsourced, and then also the impact of the 1.5% employee contributions. So those are the two primary factors as far as what's driving that, which is then being offset by the estimated increase in benefits. Transportation expenses, as you will see, the transportation expenses is going up because that represents the operating budget, which is the increase demonstrates the remaining 40% of being outsourced. So the savings that is being realized is the combination of three line items: the savings in our salaries and our benefits, offset by the increase in transportation expenses. And then the last item, which I'll get to, which is under insurance, and what that decrease is representing. Just to speak to that item, to finish the thought, insurance is decreasing due to the savings we're realizing for not having to insure the transportation vehicles. So utilities, again, utilities is decreasing. Again, we can't seem to speak enough about the energy conservation program that this district has been very aggressive with. I do encourage everyone to come to our March 29th meeting when Mr. Berlicki will be presented. The board will actually be presented with an award for the success of the program. And that's what you're seeing. That's what's driving the reduction in our utilities. Buildings and grounds. The reason why buildings and grounds is going up at 7.6% is because of two projects that have been talked about in the previous slides. We actually are adding a new computer lab at our SATS building, and we're actually removing one of the removable walls in the high school, one of the pod classrooms. And again, we're excited about that because it'll improve the instructional quality and make it more soundproof. So the combination of those two projects is what's driving the increase. Instructional supplies and textbooks, there's a reduction of 14%. That is primarily, the major item there is the reduction in the textbooks required, the district-wide or new textbook adoptions required. The reason for that is there's a delay with the state on the new core curriculum content standards. So because of that, what this represents is truly what the need is for textbooks. Mandated professional services. We're seeing a reduction in our mandated professional services. That is primarily due to the reduction in labor negotiation costs required. Lease obligations. We're seeing a decrease in our lease obligations of roughly 20%. What that represents is basically we as identified in our previous slide, as Ms. Garrity mentioned, we utilize Monmouth County Improvement Authorities, or MCIA, to fund our capital investments. Predominantly it's becoming our main technology funding plan. And what the reduction represents is the 2005 debt service coming off the books in a sense. And again, the last, I had mentioned the insurance item, the last item of other expenses, that is a combination of a multitude of accounts, smaller accounts that we collapsed up. Just to read out what they represent is professional development workshops, professional memberships and dues, extracurricular and athletic supplies and materials, health services, and non-instructional supplies and materials. That is also reducing based off of two primary factors. One is a reduction in what was been budgeted for professional development, and also a reduction in our non-instructional supplies, primarily paper. We've been very aggressive as a district to go to more e-solutions to save money on paper, and that's what's being demonstrated in these variances. Again, this slide is just to articulate, as I mentioned before, in a visual as to where the total funds go to. As you can see, the combination of salaries and benefits constitute 81%. Utilities, transportation, again, other, what's combining in other, or 6%, is instructional supplies and textbooks, mandated professional services, lease obligations, insurance, and then the other expense category. And the last slide is important to try to give a visual of how the overall money is funded. As you see, the first line item, the local tax levy, constitutes 93%, and as you will see, it is flat. We've kept that level flat from year to year. State aid, you see it shows a 128% increase, or roughly it's going from 905. It's at 905,000 from the current year 396, or that $500,000. What's important to note is we temper the word. We don't want to reference it as an increase. It's more restoring, as we mentioned before, because we still see it as we're down $2 million from what was taken from us in the current year. But again, that constitutes roughly 1.8%. Extraordinary aid, what that aid is it's additional aid that we receive for special service students that have extraordinary services required of them. So we receive aid as a result of that. Federal aid, that is aid that we do receive also for special education Medicaid eligible students. The new item, federal aid, this ed jobs, this is one-time funding. Again, this is federal funding that has been made clear that it's a one and done, for lack of better purpose, lack of better terms. How we're choosing to utilize that within our budget is to offset our health benefit costs. Fund balance. It's important to just give an overview of what this represents. As you can see, we're identifying $1.6 million. It's down $1 million from the current year. But what fund balance represents is during the budget process, we can plan and identify any savings that we can plan and identify out of our current budget. We can put forth to fund our next year's budget. Again, there are basically three factors that's what's driving that budgeted amount. Again, the favorable results of the current negotiated contract, the continued ongoing success of the energy conservation program, and lastly is we received a favorable increase in our current year health benefits costs. And so the combination of those three factors is what represents the $1.6 million that we're budgeting for next year. And lastly, miscellaneous revenue. It's made up of multiple items. $250,000 of that has been mentioned is for the one-time sale of the existing inventory, of our existing transportation inventory. And then that's, again, as a one-time item. The constant items that make up miscellaneous revenue are such as facility fees that we charge for the various groups that use our facilities. Also, we do an excellent job. Actually, the Special Service Department does an excellent job of reaching out and attracting students from other districts to attend our programs that we're able to charge and generate revenue for special education students that we receive in district. The other item is our pre-K program that we're able to generate. And lastly is our corporate sponsorship. And the combination of all that supports in, the total budget. So final thoughts, I'm going to now hand it off to Mr. Cycle.